Hello and welcome to the second part of the predictions. Gonna do the NFC today and gonna start with the NFC East. Gonna put a quick disclaimer that I'm a casual fan and that injuries will happen. So today is Thursday, start of the season. Gonna try to get this video out before the Rams versus Bills game, but we'll see. Anyways, NFC. Oh, and also injuries will happen, so my predictions are gonna be wrong. But as long as the thought process towards each team is correct or more on the right side, that's the best you could hope for. So, NFC East: Eagles at 12-5, Cowboys 11-6, Washington 6-11, and the Giants at 5-12. I'm a bit high on the Eagles winning the division. I know some people feel the same way. It's mainly due to the talent and depth on their team. Now the biggest issue is, or question is, quarterback. Depends on how Jalen Hurts plays. Even if he's the same as last year, I still think they'll get 12 wins. Cowboys 11 wins. Just think it's a team that lost too much talent and just doesn't really go all in, but still a talented team, and they should still make the playoffs. Washington and Giants, just don't think they're good teams. Even though I like some of the moves that they made, I still think they're a bit far from just being good. Just a year or two away from being good. So, yeah, Eagles 12-5. Just looking at the depth chart, a lot of talent. So, Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, Minshew is a backup, and Hurts was a great fantasy quarterback. He's a really good runner, developed a bit as a passer. He's still not, I wouldn't say he's good, more just average, but his running ability helps out a lot. Being able to design the run game with them. And it's what made this team pretty fun to watch, just how polarizing he was. And now he's going to throw to a much better receiving core. So A.J. Brown's here as a starting wideout, and it's just a really good trade. It's a really strong and physical player as a wide receiver. Devonta Smith, more of a really good route runner. Quez Watkins, kind of a deep threat. Zach Pascal's here, and he's a really good run blocker. Have Greg Ward on the IR, so I don't know if they're going to make any moves at wide receiver. They have Auden Tate and a couple of rookies on the practice squad, so might bring him up. And have Dallas Goedert, who is a player who isn't, I wouldn't say is elite, but he's not far off from being one of those top 5 tight ends, so really great player there. And the O-line is just great. Jordan Mailata developed into a really good left tackle after being a rugby player. Landon Dickerson's a good guard. Jason Kelsey, great center, back for one more season. Isaac Sumala is a solid player. Lane Johnson is an elite right tackle when healthy. And you have Cam Jurgens as a backup, probably the future of the center spot. And then you also have Jack Driscoll, Josh Sills as some backups. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Trey Sermon as the running backs. And I mean, this offense, it's going to be really good and should be better than last year's. So Nick Sirianni's back, rookie head coach who made it to the playoffs, and with the amount of talent this team just got on both sides, they should just be able to do the same. And Jonathan Gannon's the DC here, which is important because they got a lot more talent on the defense, so he could run what he wants to. I don't want to say it's similar to the Colts, but it's a type of philosophy where you rush for, and everyone in the back end just covers. It's more of a zone coverage team. especially with the trade of CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's going to play safety here. But it's just a great team. The D-line, which one of the philosophies here is just having a crazy D-line and really good depth. And they have it here too. Brandon Graham, projected to be starting at the edge. Josh Sweat, who developed into a good player. Fletcher Cox is, don't know if he's elite still, but a really great pass rusher. Javon Hargrave, who was really great last season. And Hassan Reddick, who emerged as a really good pass rusher last year with Carolina. So just the starters here are top notch, and even the backups, Teron Jackson, Derek Barnett, who was a first round pick. The D teams with Jordan Davis, a first round pick, and he looked good. I think he's going to be great, especially with given he won't have a crazy amount of reps, but when he does, he's going to be dominant, just being fresh each down. Milton Williams, who might have a breakout season. And it's just so much really good pass rushers. Like, this team has really great depth here. Linebacker Corey Kaiser White, TJ Edwards, Sean Bradley, and Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean isn't even listed as a starter, which, yeah, kind of shows you how much talent there is here. Don't need your rookies to start. And with the secondary, James Bradbury, who's really good with the Giants. Darius Slay has been great here. Avonte Maddox in the slot. Have Josh Jobe as a backup. Zach McPherson, Josiah Scott, Marcus Epps, and CJ Gardner-Johnson as the starting safeties, which is just really good. A really good trade for Gardner-Johnson. And even though he was a nickelback, they are going to run a lot more quarters coverages here. They're pretty much built for it. Gardner-Johnson's really good at just covering the seam and more towards the inside, so he'll probably be doing the same thing here in the safety spot. And yeah, I mean, this team, a lot of talent. It's a team that's never content with being where it's at. They constantly try to find ways to improve, to get better, and it should pay off this season. Kind of not really a make it or break it year for Jalen Hurts, but they have so much picks that if Hurts isn't a guy, they could find a guy next season. They could constantly make moves. They have so much first round picks, so much cap space, so be interested to see what they do next year. But yeah, I mean, should win a lot of games in the regular season, and their schedule's not too tough. You face the Lions and NFC North. You face the NFC South. So you'll face teams like the Lions, Bears, Jaguars, Texans, Titans, face the Giants and Washington twice. And there's only a few teams here that I would say might be better than the Eagles, which is in the first 6 weeks, the only game that they might lose is the Cowboys. And after their bye week in week 7, the only teams that should be really tough are the Colts, Packers, Cowboys, and Saints. So just looking at the schedules, only 5 games that I would say are really tough, and have them at 12-5. So kind of checks out there. But man, should be a great season for them. And for the next team, the Cowboys, which I'll pull up here, 11-6. It's a team that just lost a lot. Just so much, I don't know, just not a crazy talented team. I don't want to say that they're rebuilding or retooling, but they are. And it's just never a team that really goes all in, never really uses all their resources. And even in this offseason, they lost players, even players that they developed. because they didn't want to pay him. And that's always the bad thing too, because they just lose talent. That's what this team does: draft, develop, lose a talent. And yeah, it could be a much more talented team if they just keep talent, if they just get some in free agency. And they have either the most cap space or are in the top 3 for most cap space and just don't do much with it, which just really sucks to see, because you really want to see them just make some moves to push them over the edge like the Eagles and not be content with where they're at. But they have been since Tony Romo was here. And yeah, same thing this season. So enough negativity. Gonna talk about the team. Dak Prescott, great quarterback. One of the most just really great with the mental aspects of the game, calling protections, understanding where to go with the ball. And he's a pretty young player, especially compared to some of the other veterans. Like he's on the same, or not the same level, but not far off from being with the mental aspects of like a Rodgers or Brady or Matt Ryan, guys who've been here for just a while now. Just mentally, he's closer to that level than guys around his age. So really smart player. His arm talent kind of dwindled with injuries, with arm injury, shoulder injuries. So that's kind of iffy, but he can still make it work. He's an athletic player too, which always helps. And yeah, the main issue is the receiving core. I think Michael Gallup's still injured for a while. When he's healthy, it'll make his receiving core not as bad. But C.D. Lamb here, who's been a really good receiver, first round pick from Oklahoma, and just a guy that could be the number 1 option on the team. Could play on the outside or inside, just effective everywhere, and just a really good receiver. Noah Brown is a fine receiver, projected to be a slot receiver here. Jalen Tolbert's a rookie. Semi Fehoko is here. Kevontae Turpin, the electric returner, who scored like 2 special teams touchdowns in the preseason. So really exciting just player there. And yeah, without Michael Gallup, the receiving core, it's just full of guys who barely played. So that's not great. You lose Amari Cooper and Cedric Wilson, and that's just gonna hurt this team. Even though I think Dak Prescott will be fine, I think the team's gonna be hurt from it. Have Dalton Schultz here again with Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot as the backups, which is good. They're both rookies and looking in the preseason. And with the O-line, a lot of movement here. So they signed Jason Peters because Tyron Smith got hurt. It's a downgrade, but Jason Peters is a really good player still, even in his 40s. So I think that means Tyler Smith will play left guard, which makes this offensive line just as good. I'm not a huge fan of Connor McGovern. I think he's fine as a backup, but not as a starter. So yeah, having Tyler Smith at left guard for this season, because he's been playing there throughout training camp, even though he's going to be the future at left tackle, or should be. Just keep him on left guard this year. That's where he's been. Tyler Badass at center, just fine. Zach Martin, elite right guard, Hall of Famer. Terrence Steele has developed quite a bit. He's a solid player. Just it's a downgrade from La'el Collins, who they had, but they're going with the youth here. So yeah, I mean, Terrence Steele has been not as injury prone as Collins, and that's probably what this team wants, just more reliability, durability. So yeah, there's that. The backups here are fine. Josh Bowen, Connor McGovern, Matt Walazeko. So it's a really good group still, even with Smith out, who may come back around December. And with the running backs, have Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Some people might be down on Elliott and kind of hate that he gets more carries than Pollard and more touches, but Elliott's more of a workhorse back, guy you could give a ton of carries to and trust with the ball. And he's still a very powerful runner who will fight for yards, just fall forward. And Pollard doesn't have that skill set. He's not the type of player. He's more of a really good player in space that you manufacture touches for. Some of the plays I just think of with Pollard are like him taking a pitch outside, him in space, just zooming on by, making a long touchdown, catching the ball outside the numbers, just more of a in the space player. And Elliott's much better in between the tackles, so that's the main reason he gets more carries, and he's still pretty effective at it. So it's why he is a starter still, and Pollard's the backup here. But still a good group. Kellen Moore has been a great receiver, or great offensive coordinator, and this offense should be just as explosive, if not, well, probably not more, but should be just as explosive. And there have been so much games that have scored over 40 points, like against the Falcons, Giants, Eagles, Eagles twice, Washington football team. So just a ton of games with 30 plus points. And looking at the second half, yeah, I mean, just so much points scored. And so should be close to doing the same thing. And with a defense, with Dan Quinn as the coordinator, it's still a good defense, even with some of their losses, like losing Randy Gregory. And that's the main loss, because you have DeMarcus Lawrence here at edge, who's been a really good and strong pass rusher. Just a power rusher here. The other edge spots, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, Terrell Basham, Sam Williams, it's okay. Just, it's fine. Banking on some reclamation projects and Sam Williams to step up. The DT group's probably the weak spot, but even then, it's just full of young guys like Quinn Bohannon, Ozai Odigizua, Neville Gallimore, Tristan Hill, John Ridgway, just a lot of young players, and they should keep developing. But with one of the X factors of this team, Micah Parsons, he's been a really great pass rusher, just crazy athletic, crazy bend on him, and don't know how much he'll be as a pass rusher. With them signing Anthony Barr, I think it means that Parsons will probably be a linebacker in early downs and pass rusher on passing downs, just to give him more opportunities to just rush the passer for when the other team pass and be a linebacker when they run. And that's going to be really good for him. And so with the linebackers, have Leighton Vander Esch, who's been fine, Jabril Cox as a backup, Anthony Barr, who they signed from Minnesota, Devin Harper, and Luke Gifford. So it's a good group there. And have Damone Clark on the NFI list. But yeah, secondary, Anthony Brown, Trayvon Diggs, Jordan Lewis, good secondary there. Trayvon Diggs is kind of a pure playmaker. Some other cornerbacks are playmakers, but he's very, I don't want to say up and down, but results may vary. He's either going to give up a long touchdown or just get a pick, trick the quarterback. And yeah, he did give up a ton of yards this season at the cornerback spot, but you kind of live with that, with just the amount of interceptions he gets. And I mean, this offense is just should be high powered enough to where it offsets any mistakes he does. And they did it last year. So yeah, might see similar results with them. The other cornerback spots, Calvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright, Deron Bland, all look good in the preseason. Look like good depth here, and all very young players. So yeah, I mean, good team. Jaron Curse, Malik Hooker as a safeties. Hooker was a first round pick with the Colts. He had just was crazy good in zone coverage, but just injuries sapped him, and he's here. He's been good here, improved as a tackler, and still really good in zone coverage. And yeah, Dan Quinn changed up his defense. We could think of his like heavy zone coverage, kind of cover three defense with the Falcons, with the Seahawks, but he just changed it up a lot here, letting his players do what they do best, and it's just really good to see. And yeah, I mean, this team doesn't have a kicker listed. That's kind of one of their weaknesses last year, was the kicker. Brian Mayer just was okay, but man, just looking at this team, so much talent that they've developed. A lot of these guys are guys that they drafted or signed in as an undrafted free agent, but you still wish that they just get more talent, whether it's a trade or in free agency, just a bit more. It's still a good team though. So yeah, should win a lot of games. Their schedule's a bit tougher, just looking at it. That's kind of one of their issues, is a tough schedule. That's why I think the Eagles will win more games than them. I think the Cowboys might go further in the playoffs. It just depends on the matchups and who they play. So with the next team, Washington Commanders made a pretty big change with the quarterback spot, headlined by Ron Rivera, and traded for Carson Wentz. And I think it's a good move for this team, even though we know how Carson Wentz is and hasn't really been good. But it's going to be an upgrade over Taylor Heineke, who was okay last season, had 20 TDs, 15 interceptions, and Wentz is going to be better than that. He's very, I don't want to say, he's the type of quarterback where he's going to make a lot of mistakes. He'll throw a dumb interception, just hold the ball too long, fumble in the pocket, trying to throw it deep. But the thing that they have this season, that they didn't have last season with Heineke, is you have a player who's really good with play action, who could run that, and someone with a just good deep accuracy. Because Taylor Heineke, despite him being a really good backup, doesn't have the arm that Wentz has. Wentz has a still really good arm, and Heineke wasn't really good with deep accuracy. He was one of the worst deep throwers in the league. So you go from him to a good deep thrower in Wentz, and it's gonna make this offense just better. And I feel like I'm a bit down on this team, just looking at last year, because just with the O-line, they started around 7 centers, which is crazy. They just had so much. This team always has injuries, and they just deal with them and look just competitive week in and week out. So this seems healthy. I don't think you'll start 7 centers again. The O-lines looks good. Charles Leno Jr., Andrew Norwell, Chase Roulier, who's been good, Trey Turner, and Sam Cosmi, a young player who also looks pretty good. Second round pick last year. And the depth's good. Sadiq Charles, Wes Fritzer, Chris Paul, Cornelius Lucas, just a lot of veterans here. And should be a good O-line. The receiving core looks great. Terry McLaurin's been just a top-notch receiver, just making do with not great quarterback play. John Dotson, first-round pick, should be a good player. Curtis Samuels listed as a slot receiver, kind of a really athletic playmaker. Someone that you could just like use as a running back, and probably gonna be a bit of a slot receiver here. Diami Brown, their round pick last year, is a backup. Cam Sims, Dax Milline, really good receiving core, and have Logan Thomas, the former quarterback, at tight end, which is always fun. John Bates, true inline tight end. Cole Turner, Monty Rogers as the backups, and it's a good offensive group. And then you have Gibson as a starting running back. You also have Brian Robinson here, who looked good in the preseason. Got injured, got shot, so hoping for a recovery for him, speedy recovery, and that he gets back on the field, because just sucks what happens to him. You have J.D. McKissick here as a backup too, and McKissick is a really good receiver. As a running back, just a purely good receiver there. And so yeah, you have a lot of receiving options, good O-line, offense should be good. I still think the Wentz trade was good for him. They probably gave up a bit too much, but Wentz just does what they needed, what they were missing. So it makes sense in that aspect why they would give up what they did for him. And the defense is interesting. Chase Young's hurt, and I think he's hurt for a bit longer. Whoops. Dang it. So you have Montez Sweat here. A lot of first-round picks on the D-line. Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, who's probably on the cusp of being elite, or maybe elite. Then you have James Smith-Williams starting. Casey Tuhio, Shaka Toney as backups. Efe Obada, Fedarian Mathis. Solid group there. Jamin Davis wasn't good last year as a linebacker. Hopefully he improves. You have Cole Holcomb, who's been solid. John Bostic, David Mayo. Secondary, you have Bobby McCain and Cameron Curl. So they cut Landon Collins, and I think Curl is better at this point. So it's a fine move. Kendall Fuller, William Jackson, Benjamin St. Juste as a nickelback. Solid group there. And yeah, I mean, this defense should be scrappy and tough, especially with the amount of talent on the D-line. And hopefully Chase Young comes back, because they could use him. Depth's not too great, but they should still make it work. And yeah, I mean, this team, it's just weird to say that they're heading the right direction, but they probably are. And yeah, I mean, we know what the issues with this team is. It's ownership. So that's one of their issues. But yeah, I mean, this team still quite a bit of talent on here, especially on the D-line with Terry McLaurin. There's a few like stars here, and yeah, just gonna see what they won last year. Won 7 games last year. So I guess I am a bit down on them. I think it's just mainly because of other teams around getting better. But this team, I can see this team making the playoffs, even though I have them at 6 wins here. And with the next team, I don't see this team making the playoffs. With the Giants, which I'll bring up here, 5-12. And yeah, just wasn't good. Wasn't good last year. I have Brian DeBoer as a head coach now, replacing Joe Judge, who didn't look like a good head coach. So yeah, this team should be better. It's kind of weird looking at the depth chart here, seeing who's starting. So anyway, starting with Daniel Jones, former first-round pick, hasn't really been good, but just hasn't really had a good opportunity. Has had bad teams, bad coaching, everything bad around him, and he hasn't helped out. But you just can't really look at his situation and say that he shouldn't struggle. It's just been bad here. And he's a talented player, really good. One of the best players with running the read option plays. Like, you can make a case he's better than Lamar Jackson with running read option, which is crazy, but he's that type of athlete. And yeah, I mean, he has a good arm. Just hasn't really been able to show it. And maybe Brian DeBall could get something out of him. You can't really expect a Josh Allen type leap, but just any leap's good enough. And with the receiving core he's throwing to, Kenny Galladay wasn't good last season, but he's a good jump ball receiver. There have been some clips around that are kind of like discrediting him. Like, there's one clip where he's not blocking on a run play, but it's because it was an RPO and can't block past the line of scrimmage on those. And then plays showing them doing like drills, route running drills, and he looks kind of just slow. And it's just the type of player he is. He's a 6'4" guy. He's a big receiver. What he did well was jump ball passes. Just didn't really get an opportunity to do that much last season. Kadarius Toney is a crazy athletic guy, really good after the catch, and just an explosive player. Wan'Dale Robinson is listed as a starting slot receiver, which is really good. But yeah, came out of Kentucky and looked solid. David Sills is a backup. Sterling Shepard's listed as a backup. He's been a really good slot receiver for a while, just deals with injuries. Richie James here. Darius Slayton's listed as a third stringer. I think they might get rid of him. He's an okay player, deals with drops, so yeah, I mean, he's probably gone from this team. But the O-line, the tackle duo is young and should be really great. Andrew Thomas struggled his first year as a rookie, but just kept developing, and at this point is a good left tackle. Evan Neal looks like a great prospect, and he's starting at the right tackle spot. The interior is a weak spot. Ben Bredesen at guard, Mark Lewinsky, just fine players. Tyree Phillips, Jack Anderson as backups. Joshua Zudu, and you have John Feliciano as a center, who's fine. I thought they had more players. Yeah, Nick Gates, backup. I think he tore his ACL or broke something, so he probably will compete for a center spot when he comes back, just on the PUP list. So yeah, and it's a fine O line. It's better than what it was last year and some of the years before. Have Saquon Barkley back, and Barkley looks healthy. Is crazy, just talented running back, great receiver, just great athlete. Hopefully the leg injuries haven't taken too much from him, because he was really fun as a rookie. Have Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, and Antonio Williams as backups here. And then the offense, don't know what it will be. It should be similar to the Bills. Kind of have to be with the disparity in the O-line and receiving talent. But yeah, I mean, Brian DeBoer is going to make things easier for Daniel Jones. And he's not having Jason Garrett as an OC or as a play caller, so that's a major upgrade. So on the defense, Don Martindale. It's going to be just another fun defense. D-line have Kayvon Thibodeau, who looked good in the preseason. Azeez Ojulari, he's a fine player. Ashani Zimenez and Jahad Ward as backups. Leonard Williams at the defensive tackle spot, who's their best player here, and is a really good pass rusher, good against the run. Dexter Lawrence, more of a nose tackle here. Justin Ellis, Nick Williams as backups. The linebacker group, we have Tay Crowder, Austin Calitro, Michael McFadden, Carter Coughlin, and Darren Beavers on IR. So it's an okay group. Whoa. I'm just trying to think of the one linebacker they had last year from the Packers. I'm blanking on his name. But yeah, I mean, it's an okay group. Just should get the job done. It's not really the group that has been good here, and yeah, just that's all I put there. The DB room: Dory Jackson, Aaron Robertson, Darnay Holmes at the slot, and then you have Nick McLeod, Justin Lane, and Cordell Flott as the backups. Fine group there. Julian Love at the strong safety. I think he was drafted as a cornerback and then shifted to safety. And Xavier McKinney, which Xavier McKinney should be good. I think he'll be good. And the player I was thinking of was Blake Martinez, which I don't know what happened with him, I'll admit. So it seems like they released him. Okay. I think that's more of a good sign towards the guys that they do have. So, yeah. This defense, it's just, not a crazy amount of talent. A lot of young players. So, hopefully Martindale could make his defense competitive. And I like both of these coaches, Martindale, Brian the Bull. It should be a competitive team. I just don't think it'll translate to wins this season. But just a better head coach signings, always just a good move. And I just think the team's heading in a good direction. But yeah, rookie head coach. And yeah. So now gonna look at the NFC North real quick. Packers at 13-4, Vikings 9-8, Lions 6-11, Bears 4-13. I think the Packers are still going to be really good. I'll talk about a couple of their issues, but it's going to be a really good team still. Vikings 9-8, missed the playoffs last season. We're close. I just think they made enough changes to be a playoff team. Lions 6-11. Hard Knocks team. Bears 4-13, and I just don't think the Lions or Bears are good enough yet. But same thing, like with every team here, you could be positive about them and like what they're doing. There's just not a lot of incompetent teams, or at least doesn't seem that way. But anyways, Packers 13-4. Was a great team last year. Should be great again this year. And biggest question, receiver, lose Davante Adams. I still like the receiving core with Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb in the slot, Romeo Dubes, Christian Watson as some rookie wide receivers here, Mari Rodgers. I still like the receiving core, even though it's not as good with Davante Adams out, but Rodgers will make it work. MVP last year, still an elite quarterback, and it's going to be a run-heavy team. Rodgers even said that Dillon and Jones are going to get a lot of catches, and you do have Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, who has been a really great running back duo. Dillon more of the power back, Jones kind of do it all back, and so they're going to make it work on offense. Even with Adams gone, have Mercedes Lewis as a starting tight end, which makes sense. Great run blocker, Robert Tonyan, also a good run blocker, Josiah DeGuara. Kind of the fullback guy that they move around. O-lines, interesting. David Bakhtiari slated to start week 1. We'll see how he does. Been gone for a couple seasons. Don't think he'll play up to his form, but if he's just good, that's kind of all you need. And John Runyon and Royce Newman at the guard spots, both been good. Josh Myers has been good, was solid as a rookie, should be good. Elton Jenkins is a great player. Just could play anywhere, and he'll be great. I think the best combination will be Jenkins at the right guard spot, and then Zach Tom at right tackle. but we'll see what they do. The depth's good here too. Josh Nijman, Zach Tom, Sean Ryan, Rasheed Walker. So whatever they do, this team's always good at developing O linemen, and you can just trust them in what they do. And yeah, offense just should still be great. I mean, Matt LaFleur has been just does well with this team, and they should win a lot of games. And the defense, you have some upgrades. Dean Lowry, Kenny Clark, Jerron Reed is a D-line group. Kenny Clark's been really good. He's listed as no tackle, but he's been playing 3 tech too, so just a great lineman there. Jerron Reed, Dean Lowry are solid players. Devontae Wyatt is a first-round pick, and looks like a good pass rusher, so should be another pass rushing threat. The edge group, so you have Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary. Gary's developed into a really good pass rusher, another just powerful rusher. And the depth's not good though. Jonathan Garvin, Kingsley Enagbare, Tipa Galea. So that's a question mark, but if the top 2 guys can stay healthy, you'll be fine. Devontae Campbell and Quay Walker's the linebackers. Quay Walker's a first-round pick, and we'll see how he does, but didn't get a lot of preseason reps, which is more of a good sign. It means he's a player that they value. Chris Barnes and McDuffie, backups. Secondary's great. Jair Alexander, great player, could play anywhere, slots, outside. Eric Stokes looked good last season as a rookie. Rasul Douglas has been good here, kind of a journeyman DB. Backups are just full of special teamers like Keyshawn Nixon, Shabir John Charles, Rudy Ford. Safety group's good. Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage. And the defense should be one of the best in the league with Joe Barry as defensive coordinator. Just a lot of talent with the starters, but yeah, the one issue with the defense is the depth. They should still be able to make it work if there are a couple of injuries, but yeah, you're just banking on the starters staying healthy. Because yeah, the depth just doesn't look that great. So that's the one issue with this team. I don't think it'll hurt them in the regular season, but come playoff time, I mean, we've seen what this team does. They always struggle in the playoffs, so we'll see if that happens again. But yeah, I mean, this team just should win a lot of games. I mean, no other way to put it. It's a great team still. And now for the next team, the Minnesota Vikings. But also with the Packers, you can still be very optimistic and still see them as a Super Bowl contender. I mean, they are still that talented, especially when you have Rodgers at quarterback. So Vikings 9-8. You have a change at head coach. Have Kevin O'Connell as the head coach now, being brought over from the Rams. So Kirk Cousins, solid quarterback, good quarterback, whichever one to say. It's good enough. They're probably going to run a bit something similar to what the Rams did, which I think is going to help Kirk Cousins. It's going to be a mix between what they did with Stafford and with Goff, because Cousins is in between there. He's closer to Stafford than Goff, but yeah, I mean, fine player. We know that Kirk Cousins is an accurate quarterback, a pretty smart quarterback, kind of risk averse, and he's even good with play action. I mean, last year they did go under center, run quite a bit of play action with them, so we'll see that again. And so with the receiving group, Adam Thielen's really good in the red zone, always catches a ton of touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, elite wide receiver, probably you could say he's the best wide receiver. Just that good. KJ Osborne's fine. Jalen Rager, who they traded for. Jalen Naylor. So good receiving group there. Irv Smith Jr. is the tight end. He's just constantly injured. If he's healthy, that would be great. Johnny Munt, Ben Ellefson as backups. The O line should be better. Christian Darrisaw, rookie last season. Looked good in training camp. Brian O'Neill's been great. Ezra Cleveland and Ed Ingram on the guards, which should be a good duo. Ingram looked good in the preseason as well. Garrett Bradbury is the one issue on his O-line. He's a player who's a bit smaller and just constantly just struggles against bigger defensive tackles. And that's just the one issue here, but he's an okay player. Have Dalvin Cook as a running back, Madison as a backup, Kenan Nwangu, and Ty Chandler here. CJ Ham as a fullback / tight end, just a player that they could use in multiple spots. And yeah, I mean, enough talent on this team to have a good offense. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been good. He's had good offenses, been part of them, so shouldn't be too much different here. And yeah, the defense. This is a team that was like struggling with the cap. They cut Armand Watts to trade for Ross Blacklock, so you have that. But Harrison Phillips, starting nose tackle, really good nose tackle. Jonathan Bullard and Dalvin Tomlinson as the ends. Tomlinson's a bit more of a disruptive pass rusher. James Lynch as a backup. It's a fine group there. You have Daniel Hunter and Zadarius Smith, who they brought from Green Bay. So that's going to be really fun when they play against Green Bay. But Hunter's been a great pass rusher. Just a speedy rusher off the edge. Zadarius Smith, more of the power rusher that you could just put anywhere. Has a really good spin move. DJ Wonnum and Patrick Jones as the backups, which is okay depth, but starters are great. Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks as the starting linebackers. Kendricks has been great, but he's been more great in the 4-3. So they're changing up their defense a bit. I don't know what's going to happen, because with the 4-3 or with Mike Zimmer and with what he would do, it was more of a each D lineman has a gap that they're in charge of. Here, you get more players who play two gaps on a D line, and the linebackers have to read that and adjust to it. So it's going to be a bit different of a defense than he's used to. He should still be good, but I think it'll be a slight adjustment for him. Jordan Hicks here, who's used to that defense. Brian Asamoah, really good coverage player and very athletic. Secondary is interesting, especially with the cornerbacks. Have two rookies and Andrew Booth and Akalib Evans. Booth struggled with injuries in college and seems like the same thing in the NFL, but hopefully he's healthy. Patrick Peterson, veteran cornerback. Cameron Dantzler, he's a fine player. Chandler Sullivan's listed as a nickelback. With the safeties, you have Cameron Bynum listed as a starter, and Harrison Smith, who's been a great player here. Lewis Sine from Georgia is their first-round pick. Looked like a crazy good athlete. Looks like a crazy good athlete against NFL competition, so shouldn't be anything too different there. But yeah, I mean, defense is gonna change, just their structure and the way that they work. So it's gonna be much different, shifting from Mike Zimmer to Kevin O'Connell. But yeah, I mean, there's some optimism for this team. You go from a defensive-minded head coach to an offensive-minded head coach, and that's always a move that just makes things exciting. Now, I don't know if it will translate to wins or playoff wins, but team's talented enough to where they should compete for a playoff spot. And for the next team, the Lions, another team that's heading in the right direction. All these teams could be positive about, especially the Lions. So, Dan Campbell, kneecap eater. They were not good last year, but competitive, won some games, and were close in some games that they shouldn't have been. And that's just credit to Campbell and just getting this team to play hard week in, week out. But this time they have more talent here. So, with the offense, Goff started. We know what Goff is. Really good in structure. Struggles out of structure. But, yeah, I mean, just a good player when nothing goes wrong in the play. And so he's throwing to DJ Shark, who was injured, kind of here to just, don't want to say reclaim his value, but to show what he has, that he's still a really good deep threat. Josh Reynolds has been a solid wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a player that a lot of people are high on, and I am too. I think he'll have a breakout season here. Quintus Cephas, Khalif Raymond has some backups. Also have Jameson Williams, who they drafted. He's injured right now, but another deep threat that should be fun to have. TJ Hawkinson's been a great tight end when healthy. O-line looks great. Taylor Decker's been a solid left tackle for a while. Penei Sewell looked great as a rookie and should, I don't want to say be elite, but looks like that type of prospect that could be elite. So yeah, a lot of hype there. Jonah Jackson, good run blocker, good guard. Tommy Kramer's listed as the right guard. Right guard's a weak spot, but if it's Kramer or Logan Stenberg, like, that'll be fine. Frank Ragnow's a great center, and I like the backup in Evan Brown, so great O-line. DeAndre Smith, Jamal Williams is the running backs. And Swift's a good player, just also deals with injuries. But yeah, I mean, great offense, or good offensive talent. Should be better than last year. The main thing, though, is the defense. So D-line, you have Michael Brockers and Ali McNeil, who are fine players. And back with Isaiah Buggs, Le'Veon Zuruki, Benito Jones. Solid group. Charles Harris at the end. Also have Okwara, Romeo Okwara, Julian Okwara, John Kaminsky, Austin Bryant, and their first round pick in Aiden Hutchinson. I'm not the biggest fan of Hutchinson, but he should still be a productive player and solid. So yeah, just a lot of solid players here. Linebacker spots, Alex Anzalone, solid player. Chris Board, fine. Malcolm Rodriguez is a guy that looked good in Hard Knocks and in preseason. They did cut Gerard Davis here in favor of Malcolm Rodriguez, so that's always interesting. Don't know how much he'll factor in as a rookie. He was a 6th round pick, but anything from him is great. The cornerback spots, interesting. Mike Hughes and nickelback look good. Jeffrey Okudah, 1st round pick. I think a top 5 pick. Won out the other outside cornerback spot, which is a good sign. And yeah, Amarne Warrior has just been a solid player here. Been solid for a while. Have Tracy Walker and Deshaun Elliott as the safeties, as well as Afiato Melanfongu and Juju Hughes as some of the backups. And so, yeah, I mean, just a lot of solid players. Not really any stars, but just enough solid players on the offense and defense to be a competitive unit, just week in and week out. And yeah, I mean, just a fun team, a team that's easy to root for, and I think they could maybe compete for a playoff spot, but just looking at their team again, maybe not. I just think they're a year away from being a playoff team or competing for the playoffs. And with this team, the Bears, yeah, it's not great. Like, the roster looks worse. It did get probably a bit worse, but to put on a positive note, they didn't have a lot to work with. You have Matt Eberflus, who's here. Don't know how the offense or defense is gonna exactly look. Defense might be similar to the Colts and what they ran. So yeah, there's that. But on offense, Justin Fields looked like a really good prospect. Had really good deep accuracy, great athlete. So should be better here. And with Fields, we know about his weaknesses. Taking sacks he probably shouldn't have. And he was playing with the bad O-line, which might not be good this season. But man, any improvement is great. And it should be better this year. Have Braxton Jones at left tackle, who looked good in the preseason. Cody Whitehair at guard, who's fine. Lucas Patrick has been fine. Tevin Jenkins looked good. when he switched to guard, which might be a good sign. Riley Reef, um, yeah, who they signed. And so you have Larry Borum as a backup, Sam Mustipher, and Alex Leatherwood. And with Alex Leatherwood, he wasn't good with the Raiders at all. He was struggling against third stringers and backups would play deep into the preseason, and so he was waived. Um, was a first round pick, which was a knock on him, but he was taken for a reason. And so if this team could just get him back on track, I mean that would just be great. Anything from him is great. But yeah, so receiving core is not good, but it's fine. Equanimous St. Brown, Darnay Maurice, or Darnay Mooney's a good player. Byron Pringle's fine. Emir Smith Marset, who he got from waivers. Velus Jones, their punt returner, who they drafted. Dante Pettis. It's an okay group, but a lot of these guys just seem like, besides Mooney, just a lot of these guys just seem more like depth pieces rather than starters. So hopefully one of these guys could emerge and prove that they're better. But yeah, not great there. Cole Kmet at tight end. I think he should play better. Ryan Griffin, Jake Tongas, Trevon Wisco. Like I think Kmet will improve. And yeah. David Montgomery, running back, Khalil Herbert. Kyrie Blasingame as a fullback. Just not a lot of talent though. Not yet. This team's slated to be good next season. They have a ton of cap space. And so yeah. It's just a team that you're just waiting for next season. This season's just more just please improve. Please just show any improvements. Defense, have more talent here on all levels of the defense. So D-line, you have Robert Quinn, who's been a really good pass rusher. Still here for 3 more years. Al-Quidin Muhammad, good like early down DN, good against the run. Trevon Gibson's more of a decent pass rusher, so it'll be interesting to see him and how he developed. Dominic Robinson, Jonathan Kingsley as some backups. DT group's a bit weak with Angelo Blackson, Justin Jones. They're fine players. Mike Pinnell and Armand Watts, who they got from waivers. The linebacker group's solid or good. I like Nicholas Morrow here. He's kind of a good blitzer, good in coverage, so that's a good player. And Roquan Smith, who's gonna be in that Shaq Leonard role as more of the weak side playmaking linebacker, and he's been a really good player here. Doesn't have a new contract, so hopefully this team gives him one, because there's no reason to let talent walk out the door, especially with this team. And so yeah, kind of on the prove it year. The DB room's really young, but it's just interesting. Jalen Johnson's been good here. Kendall Villar's been fine. Kyle Gordon looks like a good nickelback. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Jones, Josh Blackwell, some backups. You have Jaquan Brisker as the strong safety, and he looks like a good talent. Eddie Jackson, free safety, has been a great player. So yeah, I mean, just a lot of talent on the defense. With this team, the defense should be better than the offense, and I mean, it has to be a scrappy team. So with the schedule, it's gonna be tough. I'm just looking at the teams that they play. Niners, Packers, Cowboys, Dolphins, and then Packers, Eagles, Bills towards the end. So it's gonna be tough to win games, but man, it's a team that's, yeah, you can't really be positive about it this season, but man, for the future, a lot of cap space, a lot of room for improvement next year, and you still have a lot of young players who can develop. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I hope that they do good or win more than 4 games. But yeah, I mean, just Prayers up for Justin Fields. NFC South. Bucks 14-3, Saints 8-9, Panthers 7-10, Falcons 2-15. Falcons look like the clearly worst team. Panthers and Saints. Some people are high on the Saints and think they could win a division. I don't think so. I think the depth and some spots aren't that great, but they still have so much talent. Buccaneers, I think they're the clear-cut best team here. Number 1 seed, so I think they're the best team in the league, and they just have so much talent. Panthers 7-10, yeah, I still think they could. Both of these teams, Saints and Panthers, could compete for a playoff spot. With the Panthers, I wouldn't expect it as much, but both teams are talented. And so with the Bucks, have them at 14-3. Now, I don't think they'll win 14 games. I think they might win a bit less, but it's just so much talent that when looking at the teams on paper, it's hard to find teams that have more talent than them. And so we have Tom Brady, ageless wonder, guy who's been good throughout my lifetime. So yeah, never seen him just be a bad player or even regress. And he hasn't regressed, he's improved. His arm looks stronger than a decade ago, so yeah. Don't know what he's using to get this good, but man, still a great deep thrower. Really smart player. So yeah, Brady's here. The receiving core looks great. Mike Evans has been a great receiver. Just peg him in for 1,000 yards this season. Chris Godwin's really good in the slot. Coming off an injury, but seems like he'll be ready for week 1. And even if he's not, you have Russell Gage, who's a solid slot receiver. Julio Jones as a backup. Jalen Darden, Scotty Miller, Rashad Perriman. Just a lot of talent here. And what one thing this team will do is that Mike Evans and Godwin are good run blockers. And I don't think they're going to make Julio Jones be a run blocker as much. Wasn't with the Tennessee Titans. And so yeah, I think Julio Jones will just let him just be a pass catcher, not worry about run blocking. So yeah, O-line had some injuries. Ryan Jensen, losing him is tough because he's an elite center. But Robert Hainsley should be fine in that spot. They traded for Shaq Mason, which is a great trade, great player. Tristan Wirfs looks like you could say he's an elite tackle or close to it. Like he's that good. Donovan Smith has been a solid player. Have Luke Goedeke, a rookie, 2nd-round pick, as the guard spot. So O-line should be worse than last year, but it should still be good as well. So not too much to be worried about. You lose Gronkowski, you still have Cameron Brate, Kyle Rudolph here as some of the veteran options. Cade Otton and Cole Keefe as rookies who both look like good run blockers. So we know what this team's going to do. Try to run the ball, throw it deep. Leonard Fournette, good running back. Rashad White's listed as a backup here. 3rd-round pick. Keyshawn Vaughn, Giovanni Bernard. So just a great offense there. You do have Tal Bowles as the head coach, Brian Leftwich as the offensive coordinator. And I think it makes sense to make Bowles the head coach. So Bowles was the head coach for the Jets, and in his tenure, the team played better than the talent that they had. The defense was better than the offense, and he just couldn't really. The GM kind of let him down, and he just could never hire a good offensive coordinator. But here, Bruce Arians left him with Byron Leftwich, who's a really good coordinator. So this team should still have success, and not too much is going to change with this team. And so with the defense, with the D-line, you have Akeem Hicks, who's been a great pass rusher when healthy, just a powerful player. Vita Vea, elite nose tackle. William Golston at the other DN spot, who's a veteran player, been here for a while. Logan Hall, 2nd-round pick as a rookie here. Kind of a athletic guy. Could play like all spots on the D-line, so interesting to see what he does. Raheem Nunez-Roches, a really good backup nose tackle. The pass rushing group on the outside linebackers, you lose Jason Pierre-Paul. But you have Joe Shoinaka, who was a first round pick last year and looked good in spurts. Maybe you could put a consistent season together and just be a good player. Shaq Barrett's been great. Former undrafted pick or undrafted player. Anthony Nelson and Carl Nassib are fine backup players. Have Devin White and Levante David as the starting linebacker duo. Devin White's a really good athlete, great blitzer. Levante David's a better linebacker, great in coverage. Have KJ Britt and Fadukasi as backups. Secondary should be good as well. Jamal Dean, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy Bunting. And yeah, the safety group is really good too. Mike Edwards, Antoine Winfield, really good players. Keanu Neal and Logan Ryan are backups, which are players who were starting last year, so really good sign there. And yeah, I mean, this team should be just as great. I mean, there's no reason not to be. And just having everything together, just all levels is just great. So much star talent here. And I mean, this team should compete for a Super Bowl, not just being in the playoffs, but should be a Super Bowl contender. And so, yeah, the next team, Saints, I might be a bit low on. Have them at 8 and 9. I'm just a bit unsure with this team. Losing Sean Payne, getting Dennis Allen. So you have Jameis Winston, who I like. I think he's better than he's given credit for. Hasn't been consistent at all. Just a gunslinger type quarterback. Gonna just chuck the ball everywhere. Receiving core should be great. I mean, Michael Thomas, if he's back healthy, was a really great wide receiver when healthy. It's been hurt for a while. Chris Olave looks like a really good receiver. Jarvis Landry, great power slots. Marquise Callaway, Deontay Hardy, Traquan Smith, guys that were starting last year are backups now. O-line is interesting. So Trevor Penning did get hurt, which sucks. We'll like to see him play. Look like a good run blocker though. But I have James Hurst now listed as a starter. Andres P at guard, Cesar Ruiz at guard. It's fine there. Eric McCoy at center. Ryan Ramchick's an elite right tackle. So really good O-line. A bit unsure about the depth though. But James Hurst is a depth player and he's starting, so yeah. Tight end group, Adam Troutman, Taysom Hill, Jerron Johnson, fine group there. Alvin Kamara is a great running back. Had a legal issue, which don't know what's happening with that, but yeah, just a great receiver out of the backfield, just a great player. Mark Ingram as a backup, back here again. And this offense shouldn't change too much. I don't think it will with Pete Carmichael's the OC, so it's going to be similar to what Sean Payton ran the last couple of seasons. Nothing too much will change. Good thing about Jameis is that he has a really good arm. So Chris Olave is kind of the deep threat now, and he should just get some work here. And yeah, I mean, I'm just not a huge fan of the O-line depth, but it should be a good offense. Defense, kind of the same thing. You have Jordan Cameron, who's an elite player, been elite for a while. Marcus Davenport hasn't really player who they traded a lot for and just hasn't been great. Just hasn't really, don't want to say proven it, but been a bit underwhelming. Same thing with Payton Turner, their first round pick last year. He's listed as a third stringer behind Carl Granderson, who was an undrafted player from Wyoming, and Tano Passingnon. So it's just not great signs for the other edge rushers besides Cameron, but they're going to play tough. They're going to just work. David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle as a DT group, both are really good players. Contravis Street is a backup, and Albert Huggins is on IR. So that's not great. They kind of need some more DT depth, which they might sign at some point. But yeah, Pete Werner, linebacker, looked fine. Demario Davis has been great for a while. I don't know if he's still elite, but very physical player, just guy who will throw his body around the field. Secondary, you have I forgot about Keaton Alex and Zach Bond. That's linebacker spot. You have Paulson Adebo, who's been pretty good. I think came out of Stanford. Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May as the safeties. May has been really good with the Jets. Didn't get injured coming back from injury. It's how they got him for cheap. Tyrann Mathieu's been regressing, but should still be a really good player, especially at the deep free safety spot. Marshall Lattimore, really great cornerback. PJ Williams in the nickel. I know this team traded away CJ Gardner-Johnson, but I don't think they're going to miss him too much, which is crazy to say. There's still a lot of talent. Have Bradley Roby as a backup cornerback. Alontae Taylor, who they drafted with the second round pick, who should be solid. So yeah, I mean, I'm probably down on this team, but yeah, the depth, I think there's some questions with the depth. And I mean, that's kind of it. Like, just looking at this team, I'm probably wrong on this team just looking at it. I just think it's kind of hard to trust Jameis just a bit. But yeah, I mean, man, I hope this team proves me wrong, though. Now, that's for sure. So, now going to look at the Panthers. Panthers are a team that I kind of just don't know what they're doing. This year is one of the years where you could say, I think I know what they're doing. So, Ben McAdoo, OC now. You have Baker Mayfield, who looked good in the preseason. We'll see how that translates. It's been a fine quarterback, former first overall pick. Kind of underwhelmed. Deal with injuries, just an incompetent franchise. So he's here now. But the receiving core is great. DJ Moore, great wide receiver. Robbie Anderson, really good deep threat. Terrence Marshall, probably slot receiver. Rashard Higgins, who Baker played with in Cleveland. Laviska Shenault, who they traded for, which is a weird trade. I don't really understand that, but yeah. Andre Roberts, kind of a return guy. Shai Smith, slot guy. The O-line should be better. Akeem Konwu looked good. At left tackle, Taylor Moton's been a really good right tackle. The interior just has some improvements. Pat Elflein at center, Brady Christensen at guard, Austin Corbett at guard, just fine players. Bradley Bozeman, Michael Jordan's backups, and Cade Mays. Cade Mays was a 5-star recruit for Tennessee, I believe, and if he played up to his potential, I mean, he could be a starter and even be a good player. Looks solid in the preseason. Have Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas as the tight ends, and Christian McCaffrey. So that's great having him back. McCaffrey looked good when he played last year, but injuries is the story of McCaffrey, which sucks. But hopefully he's healthy because he's a fun player, talented player. And then with the defense, Brian Burns, great player, really great pass rusher. Derek Brown, first-round pick, been solid. Matt Ioannidis is a really good D team. The main issue is the opposite side of Brian Burns, because it's probably me, Yetur Gross-Matos, who's been an okay player. Maybe Marquise Haynes Sr., but yeah, it's just could do better there. Losing Hassan Reddick, who was really good last year. Linebacker spots have Damon Wilson, Shaq Thompson. Thompson's a great pass coverage guy. Have Dante Jackson, CJ Henderson as the starting cornerbacks, and JC Horn, they all look really good in man coverage, so when they do play man coverage, it's going to be tough. Xavier Woods, Jeremy Chin as the safeties. Yeah, good team, but I just think they just don't have enough to compete for a playoff spot, but also I could be wrong. It's just with this team, I just don't trust in Baker or Ben McAdoo or Matt Rule as a whole. Phil Snow has been a good defensive coordinator, though, so yeah, maybe this defense could be what takes this team to the playoffs. It's still a team you could be positive for and expect just a lot of competitive games with them. And so, next team, Falcons. Not a good team, just straight up. They are rebuilding again. And yeah, second year. I like some of their moves though. So, Marcus Mariota has been a good quarterback with Tennessee, but injured his arm. And so, lost feeling in his nerves, but if he's healthy, should be good. Look good in preseason. Desmond Ridder, same thing. They didn't look like a rookie in the preseason, which is a good sign. Have Brian Edwards, Drake London, Olamide Zaccheaus as the receivers. Lennon looked good in training camp, so he'll be a really fun player. And also have Kyle Pitts, who's not really a tight end, kind of just a big receiver, but man, I don't know if he's gonna enter the elite conversation, but he's an elite talent, so there's that. Cordell Patterson as a running back, just really good receiver at the running back spot. Damon Williams, Tyler Ligier as the backups. The main question is the O-line. Jake Matthews is solid. Elijah Wilkinson's not great. Drew Dahman, we'll see how he does. Chris Lindstrom's a good player. Caleb McGarry's been fine. The depth's fine. Chuma Edoga, Jermaine Ifedi, Matt Hennessy. Should be a better line than last year. And yeah, Arthur Smith, we saw what he ran with the Titans when he was there, and yeah, I think you can run something a bit similar. I mean, Drake London, Brian Edwards are fine run blockers. Kyle Pitts isn't really a true tight end, but you have Parker Hesse and Felipe Franks, who's also a quarterback, as the backup. So, interesting team. It's just could use a lot more talent. But the offense looks fun though. A lot of fun players. The main issue is the defense though. Have Dean Pease as a DC. You have the D line with Taquan Graham, Anthony Rush, Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett's a great player, but aside from that, it's not great. Have Lorenzo Carter and Arnold Ebiketie as the edge guys, two athletic guys. Ebiketie looked good, should be good, but aside from that, it's not great. The linebackers might be the best spot on this team. Well, looking at cornerback looks better, but overall, linebacker looks good with the starters in depth. So, Deion Jones is on IR, which isn't good. But Michael Walker, good athletic player from Fresno State. Rashaan Evans from Tennessee. Troy Anderson is a crazy athlete. He's not a good linebacker, not even playable, but if he improves, he's such a good athlete that, I mean, it'll be fun to see what he does. Nick Kwiatkowski's a solid linebacker, so good linebacker group overall. With the secondary of AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward, both great cornerbacks. AJ Terrell was just locking up guys day in, day out this season. Casey Hayward's good in zone coverage. And you have Mike Ford as a nickelback, who's solid. Jalen Hawkins, Richie Grant at the safety spot. It's just not a talented defense. The only star here might be Grady Jarrett and AJ Terrell, but everything else is iffy. Casey Hayward is, I don't know how he fits with the Dean Pease defense, which is man coverage heavy. So yeah, because he's been good last year with Gus Bradley, which is more of a zone coverage team or zone coverage defense. But man, I'm just not a fan of the defense. That's the one spot I think is gonna hurt this team, is the defense. I think the offense might put a point and have a couple of upsets. But yeah, defense is a bit rough. But regardless, I mean, it's kind of fun. It's gonna be a fun bad team, which is kind of, a consolation prize. So Rams 13-4, Niners 11-6, Cardinals 8-9, Seahawks 4-13. That's how I see the NFC West. I think the Niners and Rams will be playoff teams. I'm gonna give the Rams the edge, mainly because you have Matthew Stafford back, and you're not starting a first-time starter in Trey Lance. But I still think the Niners will be good, have a lot of talent. Cardinals, I think they're gonna struggle. I don't trust in Kingsbury, and yeah, Still think they're just a bit away from being a playoff team, but they'll be a playoff contender. Seahawks are in a rebuild year. It's kind of clear with their trade of Russell Wilson. But yeah, so starting with the Rams, have them at 13-4. It's still a really talented team. They always go all in. Have Sean McVay. And so with the offense, Matthew Stafford, great quarterback. Great trade. You have the receiving core is probably better than last year. Cooper Kupp's just emerged as a top tier wide receiver. I think Van Jefferson's hurt. He's listed here as a receiver. Allen Robinson's was a great receiver. Wasn't good last year, but I think part of it was just being on a bad team. Depth's fine with Tutu Atwell, Ben Skowronek, Brandon Powell, Lance McCutcheon. And I don't know if this team will sign OBJ, but they probably should. I think that'll be a good move. Anyways, they have room for him back though. Tyler Higbee's a good tight end. Bryson Hopkins, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, Kyron Williams at the running back spots, which is a good group. But you have Akers and Henderson coming off an injury, which is a bit iffy. The O-line is the weak spot here. You lose Andrew Whitworth, and you have Joe Noboom starting, who looks fine when he started. David Edwards and Coleman Shelton is listed as a guard. So yeah, Bobby Brown suspended. Logan Bruss injured. The right guard spot's the one that's a bit iffy. Maybe Coleman Shelton could play good here, but regardless, Rob haven't seen good player. Maybe Bobby Evans will start at right guard, but he's listed as tackle, so who knows what they're gonna do with the O-line. It's kind of the clear weakness. It just looks like a solid group, but I mean, yeah, you have Sean McVay. He'll make it work. Defense is headlined by Raheem Morris, who's been a really good defensive coordinator. So you have Aaron Donald, elite player, probably the best pass rusher of all time. You can make a case he's the best defensive tackle of all time. He's just dominant. He's the type of player where if you triple team him, he'll beat triple teams at the same rate an average player beats a single team block. So yeah, just not a real player. Ashawn Robinson, Greg Gaines as the other DTs. Greg Gaines is a good nose tackle. Robinson's a solid player. The depths, iffy, Marquise Copeland, Jonah Williams, Michael Holt. Now the main weakness here that I see is the outside linebacker spot. You have Justin Hollins, who's okay, Terrell Lewis, Leonard Floyd, who's been a good player. So it's a bit iffy there. The linebacker spot's a strength now with Bobby Wagner. He's not what he used to be. Not an elite player anymore, but still a good tackler, smart veteran player. Ernest Jones, good blitzer, so it's finally a good group there. Cornerback room, you have Jalen Ramsey, an elite cornerback. Troy Hill, good nickel. David Long looks solid. And you have Robert Rochelle as a backup. Darren Kendrick, Kobe Durant. Safety room you have a lot of solid players with Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott, Jordan Fuller, Terrell Burgess. Whoever starts, it's going to be fine. Probably going to run a lot of 3 safety looks here. But yeah, I mean, the defense should be just as good as last season. I mean, it definitely should be. The one issue with this team is the depth. It's always been the depth. That's the main issue. It's just a team that has so much stars that they just overwhelm you with them. But yeah, I mean, aside from Aaron Donald, not really another great pass rusher besides Leonard Floyd. Like, going from Von Miller to Justin Hollins is kind of a steep drop off, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see how much it affects them next year. I still think this team will compete for a Super Bowl. I mean, they were the champions last year, and they should still be good again this year. So, yeah. Next team, Niners, 11-6. I don't think this team will compete for a Super Bowl, but it's mainly because of the question mark at quarterback with Trey Lance. So Lance looked pretty solid in his starts. Just a crazy good athlete, really good arm. Just I don't want to say a project quarterback, but just prototypical quarterback. Really good prospect. So he's starting now. Jimmy Garoppolo's the backup. Yeah, don't know about that, but whatever. Receiving core, Brandon Ayuk looked good. Was a former first-round pick. Kind of a weird career here, especially with Kyle Shanahan, but should be good. Jawan Jennings, slot receiver, and Deebo Samuel, who's an electric player. Just a great player. Just a guy you want to give the ball to. Really great after the catch. Just strong runner. Have Danny Gray here, who's kind of a deep threat, and Ray McLeod, the third. And yeah, good receiving core. George Kittle, elite tight end, one of the best run blockers in the game. Not just at the tight end position, but even as just in general, just a great run blocker. Charlie Warner, Wash Riley, Tyler Kroft as backups. Running back group is going to be fine. Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson, Tyrion Davis-Price. It'll be fine there. Kyle Juszczyk, elite tight end. The main issue is the O-line. There's a lot of question marks. You have Trent Williams, who's an elite left tackle, probably the best in the game. Mike McGlinchey's a fine right tackle. Aaron Banks at guard looks fine. Maybe even good. Then you have Spencer Burford at the right guard spot. So hopefully he hits as a pick. Have Jake Brendel as center. It's just different. You're just starting a couple of guys who aren't proven. 3 guys on the interior who aren't really proven. So I mean, we'll see how they do. It's just a clear weakness here. But if they play good, I mean, this team's regardless if they play good or not, this team's offense should still be rolling. And it's going to be a huge change from Garoppolo to Lance. You're going to be able to run a lot more design QB runs. Just thinking about the run game here, it's going to be crazy. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. D'Amico Ryans, defensive coordinator here. And the defense should be good. The D-line's just crazy talented. So you have Samson and Ibukam at the edge spot, and Nick Bosa, who's an elite pass rusher. Drake Jackson looks like a bendy pass rusher from USC. So I think he'll end up being really great. Charles Omenihu, Kerry Hyder, Jordan Willis, just really good depth. The DT room, we have Eric Armstead, who's playing DT now instead of edge, and he's also just a great pass rusher. Just reports in camp is that he's unblockable, so that's a great sign. Javon Kinlaw, first round pick a couple years ago. Hasn't been great, but I mean, you just hope he improves here. Kevin Givens, Hassan Ridgway, and some backups. Linebacker room's crazy good. Fred Warner, elite linebacker. Dre Greenlaw's really good. Aziz Al-Shaair, good backup. Secondary's a bit iffy with some injuries, so George Odom and Talanoa Hufanga are starters. Hufanga looked good in the preseason, just good against the run. And Jimmy Ward's hurt for now, which is iffy. Maurice Hurst at DT's hurt. And Jason Verrett's on the PUP list. So if Verrett's back, it'll be a good receiving or good cornerback room. You also have Emmanuel Mosley, Trevor Ward, Samuel Womack, Ambry Thomas, DeMar Lenore. So it's a solid enough group that, you know, this team will be good. It'll still be good. And it's easy to see how they could win so much games. I mean, just so much elite talent here. Just so much high-level talent. There are some weaknesses, though. Like, secondary, I'm still a bit iffy on. And the O-line, but if they could overcome them, then maybe this team could compete for a Super Bowl. But for now, I just think they're more of a surefire playoff team. Because even if Trey Lance struggles, I mean, you do have Garoppolo. But yeah, Cardinals 8-9. Don't trust this team. I don't trust in Cliff Kingsbury. and you have Hopkins suspended for a while, so that's gonna hurt. But you have Kyler Murray, who's a great player, just great deep thrower, good scamperer. Can't really say he scrambles, just more scampers. But yeah, he's been a great player here. Deserve his huge extension. And so with the receiving core he's throwing to, you have Marquise Brown, who they traded a first round pick for. Um, I'm not a huge fan, but I mean, it's gonna work well with Kyler. Just a great deep threat. Has some drop issues, but you could live with them with how much big plays he'll make. Rondell Moore is kind of a guy you give the ball to in space. Someone who had a negative average of when he catches the ball, but just does so much work after the catch that he still gains a lot of yards. I think he had like 400 yards on the season, which, yeah, kind of crazy. AJ Green, starting on the outside, have Indy Isabella and Greg Dortch as backups. So it's a fine group there. Tight end group is talented with Zach Ertz, who's a good pass catcher, Max Williams, good run blocker. Trey McBride is interesting here. The running back group's good too. James Conner's been really good, just strong runner. Eno Benjamin, probably a third down back. Darrell Williams, Keontae Ingram. Weakness might be the O-line, but even then it's full of solid players now. And solid backups too, with DJ Humphries and Kelvin Beachum at the tackle spot. Josh Jones, former third round pick from Houston, looked good in the preseason. Justin Pugh's a solid player. Will Hernandez, kind of a reclamation project. Ronnie Hudson's an elite center. Cody Ford, interesting backup. But yeah, I mean, should be a good offense. And the defense is where I think the weakness of this team is. Vance Joseph has been just great with what he's been given. Like, this defense has been productive, even though it hasn't really been that talented. So, D-line, you have Zach Allen, who's fine, Rashard Lawrence, J.J. Watt, who's good when healthy, Michael Dogby, Lakai Fotu, Jonathan Ledbetter. It's a solid group there. The edge rushers, you have Marcus Golden, who's fine, Dennis Gardick, who's like 6 foot, more of a pass rusher. Kind of banking on Cameron Thomas and Nigel Sanders, both third-round picks, both rookies, to be part of the passers group, to just be the pass rushers here. So yeah, it's just banking on those rookies to hit. The linebacker group, you have Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons, who are both athletic guys. Simmons, he's listed at the star position, which is where he should be. Not really a true linebacker, more of a in the box safety type guy. And it seems like he's gonna play that spot, so if he does, that'll be great. Zaven Collins is more of an athletic linebacker though. Have Nick Vigil, Tanner Vallejo, and Ezekiel Turner as some backups. And then with the secondary, they traded for Trayvon Mullen, who's a good zone coverage guy. You have Marco Wilson, Byron Murphy in the slot. And you have Christian Matthew and Javelin Guidry as the other cornerbacks. And Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker, who's probably an elite safety. Antonio Hamilton, who hurt, so hope he recovers soon, but he was a cornerback that's probably going to start. But yeah, it's just not crazy talented. It's just could use a bit more stars or maybe some guys to emerge, but this team should still win games and should still compete for a playoff spot. It's just a lot more questions, and it's hard to trust in Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, especially in the second half of the season, which they just keep struggling with. So we'll see what happens. And for the last team that I'm going to talk about, the Seattle Seahawks. So, yeah, interesting team in a rebuild year. Pete Carroll's here for life. I just don't know what to think about this team, because 4 wins isn't a ton, but I could see this team winning more. So with the offense, you have Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Smith's the starter. Smith is the better quarterback here. Drew Lock's more talented, but you start Smith if you want to win. You have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, great duo there. Metcalf, crazy good deep threat guy. Tyler Lockett's good in the slot, just great route runner. D. Eskridge, Derek Young, Marquise Goodwin, and Penny Hart are the backup receivers. The O line's not bad. Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, both rookies, look good in the preseason. I don't think they'll be as good playing against starting competition, but man, the future is exciting with them. Damian Lewis got hurt, so don't know when he'll be back. But Gabe Jackson at guard, Phil Haynes, fine group there. Austin Blight's okay center. So yeah, I mean it's a fine group there. It's not a group you'll be excited about now, but I mean for the future, like it'll be fun to see how they develop. Tight end room, Noah Fant, Will Disley, Kobe Parkinson, good group there. Have Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker as the running backs. Both of them are hurt, I think. Don't know what their status is for week 1, but yeah, I mean Walker looked like a talented back in Michigan State. Rashad Penny was good towards the last few games of the season last year, so we'll see how they do. But Penny does struggle with injuries, and you have Travis Homer and DJ Dallas here too. For the defense, it's going to be a scrappy defense. With the D-line, you have Puna Ford, who's a really good nose tackle, good run stuffer. Al Woods, nose tackle. Shelby Harris, a good DT. That's a good DT group there. The edge rushers, you have Uchenna Nwosu, who's a fine pass rusher. Boye Mafe from Minnesota. Darrell Taylor, Ian Robinson, a fine group there. At linebacker, you have Jordan Brooks, who's been good. Cody Barton and Ben Burke-Curvin. So yeah, besides Jordan Brooks, it's fine there. Just guys that they've had for a couple of years. And with the secondary, you have Kobe Bryant and Tariq Woolen starting. Both of them look good in training camp and in preseason. So if they hit on both of those picks, and with the tackles, this rebuild might happen quicker than expected. You also have Sidney Jones here and Artie Burns, Justin Coleman as backups. And yeah, I mean like Tariq Woolen beat out Artie Burns. I know he hasn't been a good player, but that's a good sign for a 5th round pick. And Kobe Bryant beating out Justin Coleman, who's been a really solid nickelback for years. So another really great sign. You have Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, which is a great safety duo. Adams, great tackler, great pass rusher, and Diggs, great in coverage. So yeah, I mean, there's just enough talent on this team to be competitive. Yeah, I'm not excited about this team this year, but man, the future looks bright. Whoever starts at quarterback's gonna have a good time next year. And I mean, like if they could just get a good pass rusher, if one of these guys steps up, or if they just get a great one next year, I mean, this team could be competitive next year too. So a lot of good signs for this team, and those are my thoughts on all the NFC teams. So yeah, thanks for watching if you made it this far, and see you next time. Peace.